Hey guys, how y'all doing? Today I'm going to be bringing you a video about the books that I have read through May and then the first half of June. I have quite a stack here, so I wanted to do it now. I apologize for my more kind of grubby appearance today. It's a very relaxing day, but I feel like this is kind of like a good way for me to film book videos because, you know, my more glamorous makeup videos I like to be a little bit more dolled up for. But, you know, kind of like reading and the more literary side of me is something that I just feel very relaxed about. So I feel really good when I'm just like in my glasses and, you know, very minimal makeup and just kind of a very relaxed environment. But regardless of my less than makeup face, I hope you guys can really enjoy my thoughts and opinions on these books that I have read over the past month and a half. Also, I got a new haircut. What do you guys think? I am really loving it because it requires a very minimal styling. This seriously took me like 5 minutes to do today, so right on for that. The first book that I finished in May was Glassword by Victoria Aveyard. This is the sequel to Red Queen, which I read, I think, in April, or I finished it in May as well. I don't know. Can't exactly remember the timeline there, but I know I for sure read this in May. And this was a very good sequel, but I think a lot of the same kind of like nitpicky problems I had with the first book, I also have with this book. Mainly for me, the big thing with this entire, what is it, saga, trilogy, whatever it's gonna be, is the pacing. I feel like Victoria can take her story, you know, what you have here is how many pages long? Like a almost 400 and some page novel, and turn this to like a 300 page novel. I love a big book as long as there is substance. And I find with this, there's just a lot of parts that just don't need to be in it. I don't want to go into this and be too spoilery because for anybody that hasn't read the first one, obviously this is the sequel, so I can't talk too much about it without giving away any spoilers. But it does play off of course, the Red Queen novel very well. It's a good companion to it. But I must say that I did prefer Red Queen. I just love the first novel in any series. I really like the setup, learning about the characters, learning about the world, and the first like, oh god, I don't even know, like 100 pages of this book I absolutely hated. It was so boring and it dragged on forever. So overall, like I said, this was a good sequel, just the same exact nitpicks that I have with the first novel. I feel like these need to be shorter. I don't understand why these books are so large. Like there are so many different scenes within these books that I feel like could be taken out and it would be more beneficial to the story because I feel like it would make the story feel like it was kind of rolling along a little bit more quickly. But other than that, it is a really good book. I am highly anticipating the next one because this did leave a big cliffhanger at the end. So I definitely will be picking up the third one. Just my little 2 cents on that. The next novel that I finished is called Landline, and this is by Rainbow Rowell. I absolutely love Rowell's works. I think that she is such a fantastic contemporary author. She writes dialogue super well. She really writes her characters super well. She makes all of her characters very interesting and very like distinctly different. I feel like within her works, you know, her characters all have very different personalities and very different voices, which I think is really cool coming from the same author, because I feel like a lot of times, you know, authors kind of write their characters very similarly, and I feel like Rainbow does a really good job of kind of making everybody different. This novel follows a girl named Georgie McCool. Most awesome name ever. She is a TV show writer, which is kind of cool, and it's kind of about just her life and her marriage and how over the holidays things kind of start crumbling apart, and she discovers this landline phone in her mom's house that allows her to call into the past. So she's able to call her husband in the past and try to see if she can like work out and, you know, kind of see if she can help to better their relationship, because it's getting to this point where things are just really rocky and she is trying to figure out how things went so downhill, but at the same time, you know, kind of do that time traveling continuum thing where she can't like mess up anything so that other things in the future don't end up happening. This book I really did enjoy. There's a lot of great dialogue in here. It's kind of funny. I find that sometimes I feel like she tried too hard to push the humor in this book. The main character is a writer for funny TV shows, so I feel like Rainbow really tried to add a lot of humor in this book, really to fit that character's personality and how she would actually talk, and I find that it worked sometimes, but other times it didn't. Other times it felt very forced, and forced humor just is kind of awkward. The other thing with this novel is like called the ending from like the middle of the book. Again, with like I was saying, the whole time travel continuum thing, you could tell that Georgie was really stressed out about this, but I feel like if you've read any other type of time travel novel, or if you've read any other pieces about the idea of time travel, you can really like call how this is going to end, and you can really see how all these different things are going to play together from, like I said, about the middle of the novel. So I really didn't find the ending like a huge surprise, but I did think it was very, very good. I really enjoyed Georgie's life and kind of learning more about her and about her character, and it was a really quick read. It's not too long of a book, but you know, comparatively to like Eleanor and Park, which I know I don't think anything will ever compare to Eleanor and Park, this is kind of a little bit of a letdown. And I know this isn't supposed to be anything like it, but if you have read Rainbow's works, and if maybe that's what you started with, and then like me, you move on to something like this, might be a little bit kind of upsetting, but overall it is still a good book. It's interesting. I would recommend it. I finished it really fast, and overall, I'd give it like a solid 3 stars out of 5. The next book that I finished is called Since You've Been Gone, and this is by Morgan Matson. This is a wonderful young adult contemporary novel about a girl whose best friend just randomly vanishes right before the start of their summer. This girl's name is Emily, her best friend's name is Sloane, and Emily is the more quiet, more subdued type, and Sloane was always the very outgoing, very charismatic part of the friendship. She was the one that kind of led all of the adventures, sort of pushed Emily a little bit out of her comfort zone. And so Emily now feels like she has no idea what she's going to do, because without her best friend, she really has lost a lot of her identity and a lot of her purpose. Sloane leaves her a list of things to accomplish that summer, and so what I find is so cool about this novel is the character development. At first, I had a really hard time relating to Emily. She was just so recluse. I was having just a really hard time feeling and connecting with her, because Emily in the beginning of the novel and myself are just very different people. However, Morgan does a fantastic job of dynamically changing Emily's character throughout the novel through certain events that take place within this list of things that she's supposed to be doing. It's funny at parts, it's sad at parts, it's a little bit romantic, but it's a lot about just like friendship and really discovering who you are. I just think it's really cool how Emily just changed, and how through the novel I started to like her more and more and more. I really also enjoyed the love interest in this book, because it really wasn't forced. I mean, in the beginning it's just a pure friendship that then kind of turns into a love interest, which is what I enjoy, because I feel like that's more realistically how it is, rather than that love at first sight kind of stuff. So overall, this was a fantastic novel. It's such a good book to read now in the summer, because, you know, it's kind of set in the summertime, and I flew through this. It was just really, really good. Next 2 books that I read are part of the same series. Again, this is called the Styklar Saga. The first book is called Layla, and if I had to pick a book out of my entire collection that desperately needs a cover change, it would be this saga, because these covers are horrendous. They look like movie posters. They do not look like book covers in the slightest. I don't know if these are going to be turned into movies or what, but these are awful. They are so bad. So please, this is a total do not judge a book by a cover instance, because these books are so flippin' good. Oh, I have just really, really enjoyed this story. What this is a story about a girl who has a very interesting past. She can die, but she always ends up coming back to life. She doesn't really remember anything that happened in the past. The only thing that she gets every once in a while are sort of like flashbacks, but they're very, very short, and they're kind of really out of context, and so she really can't ever piece together her past, and so she really doesn't understand who she is or why she is the way that she is. And it's just sort of following her story. Her name, of course, is Layla, and we get to see her just discover who she is, why she is this way. In this world, we do have vampires and angels, but I promise you, it's a totally different vampire angel novel than what you may have read in the past. In the beginning of the novel, Layla meets this boy, and this happens within like the first chapter, so I'm not at all giving away a spoiler, but she meets this boy named Jonah who is a vampire, and he is basically being like chased down by like the vampire mafia, and she saves him and ends up along the way being discovered by an angel named Gabriel, who is actually like her long lost love from the past, and Gabriel kind of tries to help her figure out who she is, why she is the way she is. Meanwhile, there's like that entire vampire mafia basically now coming after her because she has special powers of her own that they're very interested in. Later, we start to see the angels are interested in her as well, and it's just such a good storyline. Nikki Kelly does an amazing job of really making the plot fast-paced, really making every single sentence matter. She writes beautifully, which I think is really important too, because so many times in these YA novels, we just see very poor writing, and Nikki is an absolutely fantastic author. She really, really writes well. She builds very strong characters. She builds a very strong plot line, and I finished this book so fast. I went and purchased Gabriel, which is the sequel, finished this in literally like 2 days because I could not put it down. I was so obsessed, and I'm so sad because the third book doesn't come out till next year, and I have to wait a whole freaking year to read the third one. But I am really loving this series. I mean, it is like on the top of my list. So if this is something that at all interests you, or maybe in the past you kind of like to read these books, I highly recommend you pick this up. Like I said, the covers are awful, and I know that the idea may be kind of like, oh, whatever, because we've seen this so many times, but this is truly such a different take on that entire genre, and it's such a fast-paced, gripping, really amazing storyline with great characters. And then very finally, I finished The Good Girl by Mary Kubica? I don't know. This is the story of a girl named Mia Dennett who ends up being kidnapped, and the story is really interesting because it's told from not only different perspectives but also different timelines. So we have before her kidnapping as well as after her kidnapping, and it's just kind of interesting how the author did such a good job of juggling different perspectives while juggling different timelines and kind of throwing it all in order so it all synchronizes and it all makes sense. And it's so cool because you get a glimpse into the past and then you get a glimpse into the future, and you get it from everybody's perspective. The only perspective it's never told from until the very end is Mia's. So you're getting the story through her mom, through the person who actually took her, through the detective, and it's just such a gripping kind of thriller story because you're also trying to piece out what exactly is happening. I'm not going to, of course, spoil the end, but the end completely took me by surprise, and I found this to be a really good, like I said, thriller novel, kind of like a mystery, and it's just a very like interesting take on kind of like a kidnapping story because it goes a completely different direction than what you would think it would. My main gripe with this is that when you do reach the ending, reading the final chapter or the epilogue, it kind of made me think that like the first part of the story now doesn't make sense. I feel like I need to reread it knowing the ending because I just want to go back and I want to see like, okay, well, how much does that ending actually fit into the beginning? Because looking back on it, and for anybody that's read this or if you're going to read this, I think you will experience this too. I just was thinking like the beginning now completely doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I kind of had a hard time processing it. I feel like maybe the author just wanted to throw in a twist, but I don't know if it completely worked for me given the beginning of the novel and how Mia acts in the beginning. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to give away any spoilers or anything. I still think that this is a fantastic novel, ending aside. The ending was just different. It's not necessarily bad, but I wouldn't say that it was like great either because it kind of makes me think that other parts of the story now don't really like add up. The characters though are really good. You get a fantastic like mother figure who is trying to struggle with, trying to be there for her daughter, but also she's trying to maintain a relationship with this girl's awful father. He was the only character that I had a hard time like getting behind because he is literally so just rude and arrogant and such a bad father figure, like so out there bad that at times I just found him a little bit unrealistic. There are times where it's like, come on dude, like seriously, like well, how are you freaking acting this way? And the ending again kind of helps to piece it together, so it kind of makes a little bit of sense, but it also doesn't. I'm not really too sure. Either way, I hated the father, which I mean that did play on my emotions, so congrats to Mary for doing that. I think the detective of the story is really good, and I think it's just so interesting hearing the story from the person who's actually kidnapped Mia. Getting it from the person who is committing the act is just something that I find that you don't really get in a whole lot of like thriller, kidnapping kind of novels. Usually you get it from the perspective of the person that's kidnapped and they don't really understand what's going on, but to get it from the perspective of somebody that is, you know, doing the act is just so interesting. And so that's what I really, really liked about this novel. Overall, it's really good if you're looking for a good kind of thriller, mystery, sort of suspenseful novel. I think you'll like this. But that is all that I have for you guys today. Those are the books that I have read recently. I hope that you guys really enjoyed this. Let me know if you have read any of these books, what your thoughts are. As always, thank you all so much for watching. And if you guys have any books that you have read recently that you think that I should, please leave them in the comments below. I get the absolute best book suggestions from you guys. I really do read them and I look into them because you guys, honestly, you guys give me the best books to read. So again, thank you for watching and I will talk to you all later. Bye-bye.